Assuming most people are here, so we'll begin. Cystan a dwi, dwi'n gweithio efo Coed Cadw, efo Brian. Dwi'n dod o dde Affrica yn wreiddiol, felly dwi'n meddwl yn Saesneg, wedyn Afrikaans, wedyn Tswana, wedyn Cymraeg. Felly heddiw dwi'n siarad in Saesneg because it'll go much faster if I speak in English today. For those of you who don't speak Welsh, I am Kirsten. I work for Coed Cadw, the Woodland Trust in Wales. I'm a volunteer speaker with the Woodland Trust as well, and I work with Brian. So I'm from South Africa, and I think in English, then Afrikaans, then Tswana, then Welsh. And so today I'll be speaking in English, so it goes much faster. So we're here to give you a little bit of a talk about the Woodland Trust in Wales and what we do. So I'm just about to share my PowerPoint. We all need trees. We just give a bit of context, and these are the reasons why. So trees give us, provide us with our own health and well-being. They clean our air and cool our cities. They purify our water and prevent soil erosion. They provide a habitat for wildlife. They give us places where we can play and refresh our souls and feel calmer. And also they transform landscapes. So what's the problem? Across the whole of the UK, there's only 13% of tree cover that was recorded in 2021. In Wales, there's 14.9% in 2019, which increased to 15% in 2021. And if you add trees outside of woods, so along hedgerows, as agroforestry, maybe along verges, that increases to only 20%. So still, there's not quite a lot of woods and trees across Wales, despite what you see. And all of these trees and woods are under threat. From what? Well, there's climate change, pests and diseases, infrastructure and development, and intensive agricultural farming. So what does this mean? So just an example of what this could mean is if you get rid of hedgerows, you're going to lose butterflies. Already the woodland butterflies is 52% that are in danger of extinction. 52% have already gone. And if you lose the butterflies, then you're losing things like the nuthatch. Birds such as the nuthatch live in various different types of woodland, and already their habitat is threatened because 319 ancient woodlands have been destroyed through development across Wales and the UK. So already there's a threat for them, and that's just one example. So our mission at the Woodland Trust is to provide a UK rich in native woods and trees for people and wildlife and nature. And how we do this is threefold. We create, we protect, and we restore. And how do we do this? Well, we stay deeply rooted whilst reaching for the sky. In 1972, Kenneth Watkins, who lived in Devon, established the Woodland Trust. He was currently at the time working for the Wildlife Trust and noticed that as much as he was trying to save the wild animals, it was their environment that was at risk. And so he and two other friends set up the Woodland Trust and acquired his first wood, Avon Woods, in Devon in 1972. And since then, the trust has grown, and we now manage over 1,200 woods. And in Wales, there's about 100. Part of the woodlands that have been created were through us planting 50 million trees, with 5 million with a plant project, which is a Welsh government project whereby we plant trees and woods for children born and adopted in Wales. And also we had 300,000 households take a tree and plant them in 2022. So I'll go into a little detail of how we create our aspects in Wales here and across the UK. We offer free trees for schools and communities. And when they reach the schools, we also provide schools with something called the Green Tree School Award. We also work with county councils and plant larger trees along streets and encourage volunteers to get involved in these projects. We invite people to come and plant trees on our estate, and that is part of the plant project. So every tree, as part of the plant project that is planted, an additional tree through Size of Wales is planted for children in Uganda, which helps their economic and environmental strategies. Each child receives a certificate to say where their tree is at. And we value our volunteers who come to our sites and help maintain and continue to reach our tree planting targets. They also help at events where we invite people to come and make a difference and plant trees for the big climate fight back. Volunteers are so important to us across Wales, and community woodland groups helped us distribute 300,000 trees to households across Wales, and they all planted them over 2022. With each of these trees, we've got resources that are freely available, not just for schools. We call this our tree tools for schools, but we have activities that can be downloaded and used by adults as well for health and well-being processes. Not only do we provide trees, but we are also looking at local tree provenance. So we have something called Community Project, which is funded through the People's Postcode Lottery, and we work in collaboration with Addysg Oedolion, who are the Community Woodland Network across Wales. Just recently, we had people collecting berries from our ancient woodland, and then we provided training on how to process these. And the next step that they will go to is Tanabulch Tree Nursery, where they will be grown for the next 2 years and then later planted back out into the local community. And this project is happening in Mid Wales mostly, but is also extending into South Wales. So that's how we create our woodlands across Wales. And then we need to protect them. We work with communities, volunteers and landowners to find ways to protect our youngest trees, trying not to use plastic tree guards. We also work with landowners to identify and to preserve the ancient trees that are on their land. On our estate and across the whole of the UK, we are trying to protect our most ancient living legends. Brian will talk further about this later. This is one of our trees in Wentwood in southwest Wales. With the Ancient Tree Inventory, we're mapping these ancient living legends. This tree is in one of our sites in North Wales, but there are other sites that you can see where the trees have been mapped in our Ancient Tree Inventory, which Brian will show you. And in order to protect them, we need to lobby our government to give them rights and to make sure that they are protected. There's no law protecting these trees. So currently we have a campaign and a petition that is then used to take to government and to lobby them in order to change the law, in order to protect these oldest trees. We also know our communities love their woodlands, and we have something called Trees Under Threat volunteers who support communities to save their woodland when they feel they're under threat from development. This is a group that took their case to the Welsh Assembly. We also provide information in order to demonstrate how important trees are with urban areas. They sequestrate carbon, they reduce runoff, and they remove air pollutants. And you can see just how much here in Wrexham and Bridgend and the Towie catchment area and Cardiff. Last year, on the hottest day in 2023, we wanted to record the impact that trees make and shade, how it's impacting the heat within the urban landscape. So if you see here, you can see the vast difference that trees are making just in an urban setting. So cooling our towns and cities, helping us and our well-being. In darkest conifer woodlands, what we're looking for is to restore these woodlands back to broadleaf trees. You might see, if you're walking through a conifer woodland, particular species, maybe honey fungus or an oak fern, or maybe some really old lichen, bluebells, or other plants or beetles that suggest that this might be an ancient woodland. And we help restore these ancient woodlands. You can let our outreach advisors know, because it's not just these particular species that you need to look at. It's also the archaeological features, the different mapping that they may be recorded since 1600. And we never know what lies beneath these beautiful conifers, well, these ancient conifers. You have a myriad of ecology that is happening and waiting to burst through. Our outreach advisors will speak to landowners and in our sites, such as a place called Coed and Llanach, also Wentwood, are really good examples of ancient woodland restoration. And if you go in there, you will see a methodology that's called halo thinning. So if you see this tree here, you can see the oak tree. What we've done is we've removed the conifers just to the edge of its halo. And as we remove those conifers, the light gets in. It allows it more space to grow. And it also starts to have an impact on the soil. And you start to see those things that were embedded in the seed source underneath the ground start to emerge. And it's a slow and gradual process. One of our sites in North Wales, plus Powerwoods, has been restored over 30 years. So you can go and visit that site and see how the changes have impacted your experience walking through those woods. But we can't do this alone. It's really important that we work with a wide range of people. And one of our projects is the Celtic Rainforest Wales project, where we're working with Eryri National Park, the RSPB, Wildlife Trusts, Natural Resources Wales, and Dŵr Cymru. We use methodologies of ancient woodland restoration, such as you can see here, where the oak tree is being slowly reintroduced back to its former glory. Conservation grazing, where we allow cattle to come into our woodlands and graze slowly and gently through the woods. It reduces some of the bramble that come up really quickly, and it also means that specific species that are only seen and recorded in North Wales, such as this lichen just over here. I don't know if you can see it. It looks like blueberries and custard. And it's only found in the whole of Europe in our North Wales site, Coed and Llanach. We also make sure we remove rhododendron, and we encourage landowners to do this with us too. So we provide training about grazing, ancient woodland restoration, and rhododendron clearing, and support for all landowners surrounding our precious sites of rainforest. We can't do this alone. In Mid Wales, we're working across the area surrounding the Dwyred River up in the north, down to the Dyfi River down in Mid Wales, and across to Llanidloes Way, where we're exploring how we can work collaboratively across a landscape scale, whereby we're using the processes of create, protect, and restore together to change our landscapes for people and nature. So our vision is currently, you may see this in our values, but hopefully over time, through create, protect, and restore, we have a land that is used for wildlife, for people, and for our food production. I'm going to pass you over to Brian now, who will be able to give you information about ancient tree inventory.
Thank you, Kirsten. Just confirm you can see that.
I can see.
You can see that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks, Kirsten. So I'm a volunteer speaker with the Woodland Trust in the north of Wales. My particular area of interest historically has been ancient woodlands and more recently ancient trees. And today I'm going to talk about ancient trees, why they're so important and how we record them. Kirsten mentioned ancient woodland is anything that's been in existence since 1600. That's a fixed date, very easy to identify ancient woodland. The woodland may be ancient, but the trees probably won't have been there since 1600 as individuals. The trees will come and go. But ancient trees don't have the luxury of having a specific date from which you can say, or an age at which they become ancient. It's much more complicated than that, so I'm going to talk about that today. We have a tool called the Ancient Tree Inventory, which is a website. You can see it there. We can put a copy of that in the chat so you can get on it yourselves. It's hosted by the Woodland Trust. It's run jointly with the Ancient Tree Forum and the Tree Register, both of whom have a love of ancient trees, but come at it from a slightly different angle, if you like. Kirsten already mentioned the petition. I would encourage you to sign that. Many people don't know is that ancient trees do not have any statutory protection. They can be cut down by the landowner at their will, at their fancy, if you like. There are TPOs, which are planning tools, which can be used to protect trees from development and that sort of thing. But in general, ancient trees have no protection at all. And what we're trying to do is to encourage all the UK governments to introduce more protection in the same way as they protect ancient buildings. We'd like them to protect ancient trees. And the first question they ask, of course, is where are they all? And we can say, well, we're building the inventory so that you know where they are. So that's primarily what we're doing it for. So the sorts of trees that you get in that are classified as ancient. So the top left here is an ancient ash tree, onen in Welsh. Sadly, we're losing a lot of these due to ash dieback, but there are some beauties out there. It's not just big trees though. This ancient hawthorn up on a hill, Draenen Wen in Welsh, is also valuable, both in terms of wildlife that it supports, but also in terms of the landscape that it enhances. Not always trees in the middle of fields. This line of ancient alder trees, or gwernan in Welsh, was probably on an old hedge line and is unique in that it's got five stems to it. And this wonderful old beech tree, not in Wales, this one, it's in Hampshire. but we do have some lovely beaches in Wales. And Fawydden is the Welsh for beach, and that means a bright tree. And if you think about the leaves on the beech tree when they come out in the spring, they're the brightest green you can imagine. And then there's a lot of ancient sweet chestnuts around. Chestnuts were introduced to the UK by the Romans, so they're naturalized rather than native, and they tend to twist as they grow, so they produce some fantastic shapes. The field maple is the native maple. There is this sycamore tree, which is the same family, but it's not native. Field maple, or Marsannan Fach, is native. They don't grow huge, but they do grow to become ancient with hollowing and lumps and bumps and so on. And perhaps the best of the lot are the yew trees, Ewen and Welsh, which can be thousands of years old, mainly in churchyards. And I would encourage you to go find your nearest local yew tree and have a look at it. So in the inventory, we have three categories. Firstly, ancient trees. There's about 15,000 ancient trees on there now. And an ancient tree is defined as one which is past mature or old for its in the context of its own species. So it's in comparison only with its own species. So we don't compare oak trees with ash trees. We just look at oak trees. The key characteristics: very large girth. Girth is the circumference. What we call retrenchment, which is the top growing down, the canopy reducing, and you get dead wood sticking out the top of these old trees, looking rather like stag's antlers. And they're probably hollow. You can very often see the hollow. In some of them, you can actually walk inside the tree because it's so hollow. And they really are wow trees. That when you see them, you just go, wow, that's fantastic. But generally, they're ugly but beautiful, if you like. Second category is veteran trees. We've got about 110 veterans recorded now. So they have some of the ancient characteristics, but are not necessarily as old. So they're not as big. And the one we've got here has obviously been blown off in the wind or struck by lightning. So it's surviving, but it's starting to look like an ancient tree. The third category is notable trees. This was introduced relatively recently. So these could be notable in your local area. So maybe planted for a significant anniversary, Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee or something like that. So they're known and they're respected. Or they may be just very good examples of the species. So a particularly tall and strong beech tree or oak tree with the potential to become veteran and ancient in the future. They were added for that reason. So how do you decide if something is ancient or veteran? It really is quite subjective. There is no size or date that you can definitely say that a tree becomes veteran or ancient. So an ancient tree, one that's passed beyond maturity, is old and aged, whereas a veteran is displaying similar characteristics but doesn't yet have the age or the size. So this timeline here shows you the life cycle of a tree, probably an oak tree, looking at these pictures. So starts off growing, gets to a certain size and maturity, and is then producing fruit or acorns in this case. And then gradually it starts to age and wither and die ultimately. So this process of the canopy reducing, branches dropping off, it going hollow, etc., and eventually all you've got left is the shell. That is the process of becoming an ancient tree, and it's along there. We're looking for these characteristics before we decide what status it has. And these are the sort of characteristics that we look at. So retrenchment, I mentioned, holes from woodpeckers or branches that have dropped off and become hollow. Fungus, decomposing the inside. It's a natural process. This just because it's got fungus on it doesn't mean the tree is in danger or is dying. It's just a natural process, which will lead to hollowing of the trunks and hollowing of the branches and the stumps, buttressing and fluting of the tree, and other things growing on it, epiphytes, so mosses, lichens, ferns, etc. Even what we call cuckoo trees. So sometimes in a pocket of water like that, you get soil gathering, and maybe a bird comes along and drops a holly seed, a holly berry into it, and it sprouts holly there. So these are all things that we look for. Lumps and bumps, hollowing, and the large fat girth is a classic sign. Dead and hollowing branches in the tree and on the ground. I mean, if it's in a public park, these tend to get tidied away, but if it's in open fields, then they get left there, and that again becomes part of the recycling process. So these are the features that we look for, and the more features we have, the more likely it is to become ancient. So this is what the website looks like. It's called the Ancient Tree Inventory. Used to be called the Ancient Tree Hunt, which was a lot more exciting than an inventory, but the name was changed. So inevitably, the first thing you have to do is register and sign in. If you are interested in doing that, just Google Ancient Tree Inventory Woodland Trust. You'll come up with the website. It will ask you for a username and password, and the usual process of an email confirmation back that it is you before you can sign in. Once you've signed in, two main things you can do, add a tree and search for a tree. We'll look at those in a bit. But here you've also got a lot of information and things you can download to learn about what we record and how we record it. So we'll talk about those quickly as well. So there's a guide that you can download and take with you when you're out in the field. And there's tips on how to measure the girth. Measuring the girth is probably one of the most important things because it's an assessment of the age of the tree. What we never do is cut them down and count the rings. That would be silly. So measuring the girth is a guide, if you like. And there's a bit of a rough guide. It's very rough. But, an oak tree might take 50 years to grow a meter of girth, whereas a fir tree will do that in more like 20 years. Depends entirely where it is. If it's on the top of a hill and it's very windy, it will take longer. If it's in the middle of a field, it might be a bit quicker. So those are just rough guides. We always measure the girth, if we can, at, for me, chin height, 1.5 meters, obviously, depending how tall you are. We use a tape, generally speaking, but if you haven't got a tape, use your arms, give it a hug. The width of your hug is usually the same as your height. So if you're out there with friends or children or grandchildren, you know what their height is. You can use them to hug round the tree and take a measurement, but record that as an estimate rather than 100% accurate. So we then use that information for different species to assess which category it is in. So for yew trees and sweet chestnuts, you're looking at 6-7 meters before they become ancient, whereas for rowan and hawthorns, it's maybe 2 or 3 meters. But they're all valuable. They're all different. They're all equally valuable in terms of the habitat that they provide over time. The tree search facility comes up with usually a map or a satellite picture of where you're looking for. This is the area called Gregunog in Powys, which is an old estate, a big old country house. There are different coloured balloons for the different statuses of trees. So the orangey brown ones are the ancient trees, green ones are veterans, purple ones are notable, and blue ones are lost trees. So an ancient tree may have been recorded and then blown over. It then gets recorded as lost. And then there's the grey ones, which generally you won't see unless you're an expert. A tree that you record will be put on the system as unverified and shown to people like me and to Kirsten as a grey tree. We will then look at that information, assess it for completeness and correctness, and verify that tree. That may involve a site visit, depending on how much information you've provided, or we can do it just online. And then at that point, it becomes visible to everyone. Some trees have no entry signs on them, so these trees are in private land. You need to get permission to go view them. That's quite important. We don't just walk into anybody's land, certainly not in Wales. Maybe in Scotland you can, but in Wales we don't. We get permission from the landowner. So this drop down here, I've got this on Ordnance Survey, but you can also change that to be the historic map. It's quite interesting to look at the historic maps and see whether actually some of these old trees were recorded on the map at the time, or at least put them in the context of what was there at the time. If you click on one of the balloons, you get a little box giving you a summary of information. This is the Grugynnog oak that has a unique number, status, and girth, and some information about the access. If you then click on this box, you go into details about the tree. So more information about the tree. And this button here, Manage, one of the things you can do, certainly just to start with, is to find local trees that are on the register, on the inventory, go take some more pictures of them, go remeasure them. It may be 15, 20 years since they were photographed and measured, and you can add more information to them just to give us a timeline and a story of how they're getting on. This particular one, the Grugynnog oak, is up for the Tree of the Year. It's the Welsh shortlisted Tree of the Year. This year, that competition is limited to oak trees only. This is a lovely one. It's 6 meters, but there are some oak trees on there that are maybe 12 or 14 meters in diameter. So I don't think it's going to win, but it's still a beautiful tree. And you can still vote for that. I think the voting is closing shortly. You Google that. So the information, if you are going out and recording, anybody can do this. That we need is location, species, the girth, accessibility, and as many photographs as you can gather and give us the information. So location is important. If we do have to go out and verify it, we need to know how to find it. So a grid reference is ideal. You get an app on your phone to give you a grid reference. If you use what3words, the system doesn't currently allow for that, but you can get a translation of what3words into grid reference on other websites. Or you can use the satellite view. If it's a tree in the middle of a field, you may actually be able to pinpoint it with the crosshairs as well, if you're out there with your phone or something like that. Species, if you're not confident about species, just say don't know, but then provide photographs of the leaves, any fruit or nuts or berries, twigs if it's in the winter, bark, etc. And then that will help us do the identification for you. Girth, we'll talk a bit more about how you measure it. Access, public and private, but different categories within there. And as I say, as many photographs. And for each photograph, you can put a bit of commentary. Just put a few words, say this is a general view, or this is my view of the fungus, or there's it appears to be hollowing, etc., etc. So the more the merrier there. Here's an example of how you record the species. You can search and it will give you a list of different species. If you're not sure which species it is, the most common are pedunculate and sessile, just put oak, doesn't matter. And you can see here, you can click on these and it'll give you a couple of choices. But if you're not confident, just put don't know. Girth, we ask you to record two things, the circumference or the girth and the height at which you measured it. Ideally 1.5, but we'll talk about how sometimes that varies. And if you've not been able to measure it accurately, tick the estimated value, and that means that the verifier knows that it's only an estimate. These are the different options for public access. and private access. So if it's in a public park, it's completely open. It may be in restricted national property, or it's somewhere where it's closed during the lambing season or something like that. So again, as much information, and put some information about how you found it. So if you're walking along, a public footpath, is it on the left or is it on the right? Did you have to go through gates, etc.? Tell us how you got there. Dead easy to load photographs. You can either click on there and go from your Explorer, or if you've got the Explorer open, you can drag and drop straight on. And again, there's an option to include some text. Tree form is quite important, but not essential. Is it standing or fallen? Is it alive? Tree condition, lots of different options there. So this is the deadwood in the crown, the hollowing, etc., the buttressing and those sorts of things that you can add there. And if you know it's got a local name and a tag, you can add that there. Epiphytes, these are the things that grow on the tree. So again, look at these, add as many as you see. So mosses, lichens, etc. Take photographs as well. Tree form, in the guides, there's these details of the different tree forms. Probably the most common is maiden and a natural pollard. Sometimes difficult to tell if it's a deliberate pollard rather than natural, but we also get coppiced and multi-stem, and sometimes phoenix trees. Willows are very good at falling over, not dying and sprouting again. So different tree forms are interesting, but not essential. Where do you measure it? As I say, 1.5 meters. If it's on a slope, it's 1.5 meters on the high side of the slope, and if it's leaning, it's 1.5 meters on the underside. If it's forked at or around 1.5 meters, tend to measure below. But again, record that you've measured it at maybe 1.2 meters rather than 1.5. If it forks at 1.5, measure it above. If it's lumpy and bumpy, at 1.5 meters, again, measure below. So in effect, you're measuring the smallest circumference, not the biggest. And multi-stemmed, take a measurement at ground level. It gives us a view, but also maybe take a measurement of the biggest stem and put that in the text. So what happens then? Anybody can do this. You, your family, your friends can go out and measure trees and put the information on. As I said, the more information, the better. At first, it will only be visible to you. Then local verifiers such as myself or Kirsten will review that, visit if necessary, will determine the status, ancient, veteran, or notable. If you have a view on that, then put it in the text, and once it's verified, the tree will become visible to you and to everybody else. And you may well get a message from the verifier to ask a question or just to say thank you. So a very quick canter through ancient trees. It normally takes anything between 2 hours and a day to cover ancient tree training, but I hope it's given you a brief insight and an encouragement to go and record some trees in your area. Take photos and add them to existing ones. Get out there, get out in the fresh air and start doing this. So thank you very much. I will stop sharing and pass back to Kirsten. The technology allows me.
Well done, Brian. Thank you so much. And I've popped the ATI link into the chat, as well as our campaign on how to protect trees and woods, and also British Wildlife Trees of the Year. I'm just going to do a few minutes more of just something. If you notice how you're feeling right now, you've been listening to this, you've been sitting still. If you place your feet on the floor and maybe roll your shoulders. And take a deep breath. You're going to just take a moment to imagine that you are in a woodland. Notice if that changes anything in you. So I don't know about you, but I definitely feel a lot calmer. And so woods and trees are not just important for our wildlife, but it's for us and our well-being. Going out and measuring trees, taking friends out for a social, really also boosts that your immune system, those endorphins. And if you don't have a measuring tape, don't worry. You can all measure it all together. Don't have any trees nearby you? Don't worry. You're not alone. Most people, 84% of people, don't have access to trees and woods in their local vicinity. So we have started a program called the Tree Equity, whereby we are measuring and discovering how many trees there are in urban areas. The Woodland Trust has worked with the National Centre for Sustainable Healthcare and partnered with an American firm who are not-for-profit to create something called the Tree Equity Score for the UK. There's a map that you can go to, highlight the green areas where they mostly mapped within urban areas, high density urban areas. And when you go onto them, you'll be able to have a look and see where your particular area or a particular area is and what the score is. The lower the score, the less the trees. And so if there are lower scores, we can increase the trees, by lobbying our local county council and ordering free trees from Woodland Trust, and get planting with your community and increase your tree score. It's a great thing to do for your well-being. Exercising out in nature is highly recommended to boost endorphins, to boost well-being. I wouldn't recommend doing handstands, but I would recommend volunteering. Just to let you know, we've got woodland working groups across Wales. These are all our sites across Wales, and they're managed by our 4 site managers. We have just an example down in Neathport Talbot. If you live in that area, we have a woodland working group who help with tree planting events, help our conservation grazing animals, help to plant trees and seeds, and install way markers across the paths. In Wentwood, we've got a group that helps with the ancient woodland restoration work, and also helps to run events there. In the north, we've got Plaspower Woods, where we always need volunteers to help us at our lantern events, or you can get involved in the ancient woodland restoration work, marking up the trees for contractors, or perhaps tackling paths. And in our Celtic rainforests, you can work with Cymdeithas Eryri to either collect local seed source or to record wildlife such as our barn owls and pine martens. Those are just examples of some of the woodland working groups. We've got a new one that's just been established in Dolgellau, which is in sort of mid Wales here, and they are seeking new members. So if you're in that area, please do join us. You learn a lot. You learn by doing. And what we want to encourage is a lot more young people to come and give us innovative ideas across the Trust, and particularly here in Wales. We've got a competition called the Ignite Innovation Challenge, And we really want people, young people between 16 and 25-year-olds, to come up with some ideas about conservation in this current era. People who have applied have been young people who are doing social media posts to raise awareness about conservation. They've been given mentoring support by our social media teams, and they've been given funds as well. So it's a way of learning as you go, and you get paid for the work that you do. So if you know you are a young person or know of a young person who has a great idea, they can apply to this challenge, and we can extend this into Wales and harness together what we could do for trees and woods across Wales. So we just want to thank you for your time. I will be sending these links about what we do in an email, and if you've joined, you could potentially be sent these. But I also wanted to show you a little something in terms of learning, because I'm aware you're all adult learners. So I'd just like to share one last thing. This is it. Learning tools we've got online are the Tree ID app. Bear with me. You can go on our website. There's a video of how to use it, and you can download it from the Apple Store and Google Play. So you can start to learn to identify trees. Our other learning tools are the tree tools for schools. You can look up activities, and we have free downloadable resources that you could start learning if you want to keep it really basic, how to identify trees or wildlife or animals. You just click on the spotter sheets, and you can download them for free, take them out, using with family and friends, and start to learn about trees and woods. The other thing you can do is get yourself, for only £4, an ancient woodland indicator guide from the Field Studies Council, and go out to any conifer woodland and see if you can notice a myriad of these species. We worked in collaboration with them to provide this as a learning tool for the public. The other tool you can use is in English or Welsh. You can use our 360-degree tool to look at a map of our ancient Celtic woodlands. And in that, there are videos, talks by the local site manager, talks by some of our volunteers, and it gives you just information about our woods and trees in English and in Welsh. Another way to find out about us is on our Wales page, which I'll send that link. And you can always join us and become a member, and you'll get emails that give you more information and more learning tools. Or come and join us at Cymru as a volunteer. So I'm going to stop sharing. And if you have any questions, perhaps we can put them in the chat.
One thing I'd add is that both Kirsten and myself are volunteer speakers, and we have a network of speakers across Wales. So if you're part of an organisation that wants to take this further, learn more about ancient woodlands, ancient trees, you can invite us to come and talk to you. Very often that can lead to further activity, going for a walk and that sort of thing. So by all means do that.
I'm going to just pop in the learning tools I mentioned.
There's a question in the Q&A. How do we collaborate with business and other organisations like the RSPB?
So collaboration usually starts to emerges through work that is already happening on the ground. So it's an evolving process, as far as I understand. For example, with the Celtic rainforest for Wales, there was a need to protect the local pockets of rainforest, and it was a common problem across Oedolion National Park, and for the Wildlife Trust, and for RSPB, Natural Resources Wales, and ourselves. And we each had different skills that we could offer, and so came together to formulate a bid that we could put then to the European funding. It's a final European funding that is being used in Wales from the LIFE project. And so that's how we start to collaborate. And then through that, when we're working on the ground, other projects are starting to be formed where we start to see where we need to be working together across landscape scale. So you can contact our Wales if you are from RSPB or Wildlife Trust and you do want to work with us at a landscape scale. You can contact Wales at woodlandtrust.org.uk and put in a request, and then it will be sent to the relevant people to have an initial conversation.
Yeah, and another example is the community project that Kirsten mentioned. That's a project that we're doing with Coed. I've just done 2 out of 3 ancient tree on-site workshops with them. That's funded by the postcode lottery. So a lot of these collaborations are funded by joint bids for grants and that sort of thing.
Any other questions?
There's another question apropos your work. Do you see a link with planning? I assume you mean the local council planning. I don't think we have any formal, I'm not aware of formal links with council planning, but we do have a campaigns team that will help local organisations deal with planning applications that may be threatening ancient woodland and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it depends on what you mean by planning. So in Wrexham, for example, we are working in collaboration with the Wrexham County Council, who applied for our emergency tree fund, and their departments are working together to plan around trees within Wrexham. So they are looking to see where trees are needed using the tree equity score, and they are now putting in place plans to.
Hi, Robert.
Hello, can you hear me?
Question.
Yeah.
Okay, so by the way, I'm a member of the Woodland Trust, so that's why I'm listening in.
Thank you for your support, Robert.
Just to say that I am an independent strategic property advisor, particularly around commercial property and helping businesses. But back in the day, I trained as a land agent, and woodland management was part of my training back in the day. Anyway, what's my point about planning? We have a different regime in Wales. In England, they have something called BNG, biodiversity net gain. In the wider sense, one could argue. In Wales, we have Planning Policy Wales 12, which is about being more proactive and taking greater cognizance of the environment in the wider sense, which of course includes trees. And I was just thinking, just reflecting on my questions, businesses may want to, collaborate with the Woodland Trust, and I've grown up with these business organisations over the years, CBI, IOD, FSB, and it just struck me, have you explored that avenue? And then I was kind of thinking about planning in the sense of there may be another development, okay, I'm just making this up for effect, but they may be restricted on the site for which they're trying to get planning, and therefore I'm thinking, okay, so could they demonstrate an environmental gain by engaging with the Woodland Trust with some form of tangible commitment, which facilitates Woodland Trust management and stroke development in the sense of growing more trees? That's the gist of what I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about where we work with landowners and have some kind of commitment. So, for example, in our Celtic Rainforest Project Wales, there is a request for landowners to remove rhododendron from their area, and that is, you know, whether it's a business or a private business, farmers, or local environmental organizations. So people need to sign up to say, I think it's a 30-year contract to say agreement to say that they would do that. So potentially something like that would be included in planning. But we do have, if you send me, private message me your contact details, I can pass this on to our legal team in the organization, and find the right person who would be able to help you and answer your question. I'm not a planning officer, so I'm not able to give you that information. But I do believe that, you know, we do look at different ways of working with people at a landscape scale. So if that means working with businesses who are acquiring land and want to work on it in an ecological way and a conservation way, I don't see why that can't be looked into.
Yeah, the focus behind my question was non-rural.
Yeah.
Into the urban tree. So that's
or indeed, you know, industrialists stroke businesses who operate.
That is definitely going to be coming up, actually, to be honest with you, with this tree equity score that's currently happening and being delivered across the UK. Particularly in Wrexham, we're going to be testing out how we work within urban areas to increase the tree equity scores. So businesses would be probably part of that. And if it works there, it would be an example of how it could work elsewhere. But we do need to test it out first. So if you know of businesses in Wrexham who would be up for helping with that, that would be, yeah, do get in touch.
I forwarded my email address in the chat.
Yeah, I can see that. I think one way in which I've seen, you know, local businesses engage is through the community tree scheme. So if they're, you know, if they've got a site and basically it's the grounds are just grass at the moment, and somebody says, why don't we plant some trees? Then they've engaged the local community, got a community project running, and that community project has applied for free trees to plant out in the grounds of the building, and actually done the work. So, you know, there are connections. It's not with the planning department, it's with a local business engaging the community. So I think there are plenty more opportunities along those lines as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time and for listening. And for those of you who aren't here or watching the recording, do get in touch. I will send Sarah, or perhaps Sarah would collate the links that I've put into the chat and send it over to people in case you aren't able to see the chat through the webinar. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you everyone for your time.